Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our campus update, State of the University meeting. It's a real pleasure for me able to kick the year off with you all in our first week of classes with this update. This is not going to be the traditional update. It's not a typical town hall. Rather, this is a different perspective. I thought it was important to talk about some of our strategic directions at a high level. We will have later, probably early March, a town hall that's more traditional to answer some of the more specific questions that we typically get into around some of the updates and matters that many of you have been asking about for some of the last few weeks. I will say that we have been answering every single question that has come in, and I encourage you to continue looking at the coronavirus website that the campus has that has everything in it. We'll put that in the chat function, so you'll have that link if you're watching this, and we'll send this out as a follow-up. So I'm going to present for about a half an hour, and then we will open it up for questions and answers. Wanted to mention this title, Leading Positive Change During a Pandemic. What's that all about? That's exactly what you've been doing. And I couldn't be more proud, couldn't be more pleased, and want to share with you a lot of the impact that we've had and where we're going. As you know, I always like to give a bit of an overview in terms of where this conversation is going to go, what I'll cover during the half hour or so that I'll be talking. I'm going to stress how we matter more than ever, setting the stage for many of the things that will follow that. We'll take a look back, we'll take a look forward, and we'll talk about bold actions, things that have been underway that are significant, things that you've been doing, things that we need to do more of as we take a look back. We'll look at today and look forward. I'll pull this together and talk about what this vision for change means, and then I'll offer some specific requests, things that I'm going to ask you to do, close the comments and open it up for Q&A. You know, I say this a lot, and it's vitally important as a foundation for this talk and really many others. There's no other institution in the state that does what we do. While there's much change that has occurred in the world, in fact, even from December to now, we really are in a different world. We have a different president, we have different Senate makeup, we have a number of different changes that are occurring in terms of the health parameters. We're seeing the number of incidents and deaths coming down. We're seeing vaccinations coming forward. We're seeing a lot of things that are significantly changing in many ways as we've continued to see. But one thing that's constant is UWM matters in a huge way. If you think about what happens in terms of headlines in the news every day, locally, regionally, nationally, we're addressing those issues. If you look at this slide, UWM is front and center. Take talent, for example. What have we been hearing for the longest time? How short employers are for the talent that's needed. Well, who provides more? We have almost 200,000 alumni that stay here in Wisconsin for the most part. Over 80% of those graduates stay here. It's a diverse talent pipeline. It's remarkable in terms of filling the needs of the state. Similarly, we could talk about how we help close the achievement gaps, the health issues, PFAS, how we're addressing that, so many other issues around water, environmental issues, and of course, addressing racial disparity. Not only the education achievement gaps, but chronicling, developing policy recommendations. So a tremendous number of things that are happening to solve problems that exist in Wisconsin, to create opportunities that otherwise would not exist. If you take a look at that, that's kind of the macro picture, but drill down into this. What does a degree from UWM mean? Top left side of this, if you just take a look at a few of these things, I'm not going to read all of this, but for our graduates, take a look at the first few. When you graduate from UWM, you have greater employment opportunities, higher earnings, more likely to own a home, and a number of other great advantages. What does this mean for community, society, for employers, for families? Well, take a look at the bottom right. More vibrant, healthy communities, higher engagement from citizens, individuals who give back, more engagement, and democracy that is much more robust. And we have to stop and pause and say, if we could educate even more people in the state, what would that mean? Would we have more civility? Would we have more understanding about the ways to disagree, ways to communicate, ways to have more meaningful discourse in a different way? I absolutely believe that would be the case. As we move forward with that as a foundation, and let me back up for a moment. I'm sorry. I want to make one additional point. Why do I premise this conversation around why we matter so much? Well, it's vital because it's what you do every day. You absolutely contribute to these types of outcomes, not only for our alumni, but for the larger region, community, society. That's what your work is all about. And on the one hand, it's a calling, but it's an incredible responsibility as well. The other thing that I want to reinforce about this is, I had a conversation with Dean Emeritus Stan Stojkovic of the Helen Bader School. And we were having a nice conversation and catch up yesterday, and he shared this perspective, and I told him I was going to credit him with this. He stood back, and I was acknowledging his leadership role and his philanthropic giving, which has been nothing short of remarkable. And he said, Mark, you know, we are going to all look at this, at some point and say, what have we done? What have we done to really make a difference? And he had this comment, and he said, there's nothing that's more important than helping others. And I think that that's a great perspective, because that's what we all do. And it really caught me in the most positive way. And I want to share that with you, because I think it really is the foundation of what UWM is all about. Through our research, through our teaching, through our community engagement, we exist to help others. So let's move on. What have we done? Well, as you know, the last year has been focused in some ways kind of defensively around safety and health. Critical foundation. We have conducted, and you may or may not know, that for this campus alone, over 27,000 tests. For the community, over 34,000 tests. It's pretty remarkable. We've been the front line. Now, if you heard Tommy Thompson in the news recently, if he had his way, Governor Thompson would say, we would have shots in everybody's arms by the end of March if the UW system could really lead the way. So he's kind of bold and big in his thinking, and we're working towards seeing if we can become a vaccination site. And of course, I think most of you know this is regulated by the feds and state authorities. We're on the receiving end of a lot of this information, but we do share the information, and we'll keep you posted. And certainly in or before our next town hall in early March, we'll be continuing to communicate about this. As you know, the modalities, what we've been working on has affected our operations and our housing, dining, and other athletic and other facilities, the research and lab work that you're doing, and of course the ways we've been teaching our students. At the same time, I'd like to stress that as fast as we've pivoted, as good as we are, because the entire world now has gone to remote learning and instruction, we need to be even faster, more agile, and better. I'm so gratified with so many of you who have come forward, many people who are my colleagues, i.e. senior folks, who have said, I'm surprised at how much better my students can learn. I'm surprised at some of the strides that we've made. But let's recognize this is not easy, and there's a lot of individuals who are not able to make this, a lot of our students who are not able to make this adaptation. There's a lot of challenges that continue, and we're seeing that especially with K-12. We're seeing this in a number of other areas. But the point is, we're going to have to continue to improve our work in these areas. Let's take a look at financials. We expected last year to be down $40 to $90 million. There's some reasonably good news here in that we are looking at reduced revenue of $49 million, but we've reduced our expenses 27, putting us at a net of about $22 million down. Now, the good news, we think reasonably optimistic that the federal funding that is coming our way should help with that. So the cuts have been potentially larger than what we were predicating this on in terms of some of the potential budget cuts that would result were, as you know, at a higher level as we had the conversation over the last 6 months. Where we are today, though, in the bottom half of the slide, is that we have now conveyed, and units are working, both deans, administrative unit heads are working on the cuts and managing this in a different range than what we had originally anticipated. The range is roughly 2.8 to 5.5% with an average of 4.6. I want to stress the next point. No matter where you're at in a school and college, you're not experiencing a cut as deeply as the administrative cuts. Other than enrollment management, which I think you can appreciate the importance of enrollments, we have protected enrollment management, but administratively we've taken, therefore, a larger cut at 6.1%. Our future is very much dependent on our enrollments. I think you know that in terms of how our budget is built, and of course, state appropriations. We have received this year this academic year a cut, and we received last year a cut. That's a significant challenge, and why Governor Thompson, as the interim president, is pushing so hard for us to get additional funding. And it really is just, if you will, restoring some of those cuts. So it's really not moving us forward a whole lot. This, unfortunately, is one of the big trends that has been happening in Wisconsin and in other states, but certainly for the last 10 or 11 years without much change in Wisconsin. As we look at things today, a couple of quick highlights here. Furloughs, we have not yet made a decision about whether furloughs are going to continue. It's very much reliant, as I mentioned, on enrollments, state budget situation, as well as the financial impact of VSIP. We have had about 100 individuals who are approved. You can see the breakdown there. And as much as this is a financial benefit for the campus, it is difficult for us to part with these valued, talented employees. The pay plan, good news here is that the second biennial year of the budget in terms of the pay plan, that's now taken effect. So you'll see that on your paychecks. And then we have requested and have received Regents approval for a 2% and 2.5% for the following year pay plan increases. If we receive that, that would result in years 5 and 6 of additional pay increases of at least 1.8 to 2% over the last several years and continuing. So this is very good news and continues to help us move ahead. As we look forward financially, a few thoughts, and there's more than just financials here. As we've stressed over and over again, our tuition revenue and state funding are critical. I need to point out, everybody has a role in tuition revenue. Every single employee, every single student is very much involved with this perspective. The way we're built, the way we're funded, this is essential. We are looking at other revenue sources increasingly. I'll talk about that in terms of partnerships in a moment. But I want to stress these last 2 points. For the good of our financials, of course, it's better for us to have full dorms as opposed to the current dorms that are 45% full. It's important for us to have classrooms that are full as compared to the 20 to 25% face-to-face types of operations that we have. It's not just financially, though. For better learning, for the engagement, and really for what 18 to 25-year-olds need from a development perspective, from a quality learning experience, and frankly, what I believe all of us need as humans is that type of social interaction. That's why we exist the way that we do. If we were built to be completely remote and online, well, it would be a different, different campus. So this is imperative for us to be able to do this. And what that does, if we plan for fall in that way, as much as we can in terms of a vaccinated world, a healthy, safer world, that's going to give us much more flexibility. We can always pivot back, but I ask you to join me in getting back to normalcy as soon as we possibly can. So that's some things as far as looking ahead that I wanted to stress. Now, I mentioned alternative revenue sources. Each of these 4, you've heard me talk about quite a bit. UWM is leading the way in major, significant, sometimes statewide, but certainly at least regional partnerships. Every school and college has centers and institutes. Many have 8, 10, 27. But what's different about these is these have significant interdisciplinary, cross-campus partnership activities, as well as other academic institutions and significant partners, whether they be the state or employers or otherwise. So that's the key there. Great progress has been made, even we're in the environment that we're in. I spent in the last plenary in the fall probably 5 or 6 slides on the work that we're doing in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Vitally important for our future, vitally important for our past. A lot of great things that are happening here. But I want to stress a few points just in terms of quick updates. We have more diversity on more dimensions than any other campus. Pride point, absolutely critical. Do you know that 1,700 students, underrepresented students, is the average number for the 13 campuses across Wisconsin? Our campus far leads that with more than 3 times as many, over 6,000 students that are students of color. Now there's other dimensions as well. There's first generation students that are either current military or veteran status, LGBT, non-traditional, students, single parents with children that are studying. many, many dimensions of diversity. We're number one in terms of size, in terms of this campus. That's a great thing. The challenge, however, is that retention and graduation rates aren't universally successful. So we need to address that, and that's often what we talk about in terms of the opportunity or achievement gap. I'm going to talk more about that on the next couple of slides. At the same time, our faculty, staff, leadership, we don't mirror the diversity as well. We're not alone in this regard, but that's something that's a significant both opportunity and challenge for our campus. We need to do better, and we're going to do better. We've implemented and taken a lot of actions in this area. Some of those things is that we will be rolling out our racial justice and equity program that I want to thank Vice Chancellor Joan Prince and Associate Vice Chancellor and Professor Chia Vang for helping lead the effort with a number of campus colleagues to help create this training that we have piloted at both cabinet level as well as the deans. And I think you'll find this to be rewarding, helpful, informative, and also important for helping change our culture around equity, sensitivity, anti-bias types of dimensions. You'll get a memo update from me and links for the training February 8th. There will be additional training, of course, from the system around cybersecurity, sexual misconduct, those types of things that will be happening. So this spring, more training on the way. Our Care, Respect, and Expression group has been meeting, and you'll be seeing the implementation and updates on that very soon. And then we have launched the Moonshot for Equity. I'm going to talk more about that in the next page or two, and it really rolls into this concept of what I want us all to be sensitive to and help me with this last idea about how important it's going to be for our work to be comprehensive and integrative. We have many things underway on our campus, but we've got a huge opportunity to be more coordinated and bring those things together. Let me explain what I mean. Let's start with what's one of the most vexing challenges that's occurring in the state of Wisconsin right now, and frankly, it has been for a long time. It deals with this issue that I mentioned earlier about the achievement gap. So there's a lot of numbers here, and I'm just going to summarize very simply and say something as basic as take your average high school class in the southeastern 7 counties in Wisconsin. This is M7, southeastern 7 counties. Across all of those students, across all of the high schools, and from any background, take an average of 20 students, 12 of those students, after 17 graduate from the high schools, 12 of those will enroll in college. That's a pretty significant step down already. But what's challenging is that only 5 of those 20 are going to graduate if you go at 150% of 2-year or 4-year graduation times. And if you look at students of color, those numbers go in half. In fact, I was on a panel this morning with the M7 annual update, and our region of choice leader showed data, or she shared data that talked about Black and brown students in this region. Only 2 of those students out of the 20 will graduate from college 2-year or 4-year or get a certificate in a 6-year period. That's simply unacceptable, and we have to do something about that. UWM plays a huge part in that and is leading the way in terms of the Moonshot for Equity. What is the Moonshot for Equity? On the right-hand side, what you'll see is our commitment that by 2030, we are going to eliminate that equity gap. There's going to be no longer that achievement gap. And we're also going to work with high schools to have more students continue on to college. We're doing that through M3 and the Higher Ed Regional Alliance. We were the first region in the nation to go down this path. Other campuses, other regions in Miami and Memphis were going to join us, but because of the effects of the pandemic, they said we have to hunker down and focus internally. I can tell you, as the leader of the Higher Ed Regional Alliance, I'm the chair of that group with 18 education institutions in this region. I said this is exactly the right time for us to move ahead and take these challenges on head first. We've got to lean in, we've got to be stronger at this. It's just imperative for us to do it. So that's what the Moonshot is all about. And I want to tell you that there's huge opportunities here for us to take all the different things that we're doing on our campus and integrate them even more collectively. I want to give credit to what we've seen happen in our global inclusion area. We have consolidated the leadership and the coordination of the work of the multicultural centers. We need to build on that type of work and think about the support and the incredible things that are happening in student affairs, in our enrollment management areas, across our schools and colleges, with our UITs, our IT support, with university relations and communications, to really build cohesion and coordination around those areas. That's what I meant when I talked about, please join me in the 2021 effort for greater coordination and communication. Now, in that same spirit, you've been hearing for the last year about 2030. 2030 is our think tank, the group of really organic suggestions, ideas for how do we prepare for 2030. Well, we launched this work before we had the pandemic, and as our provost likes to say, 2030 is now. So I'm very excited about seeing the report come forward. There's 4 different key priority areas here. I'm not going to go through them all again. You've seen the report. It's been posted for a long time. Groups have been working on this. I'm particularly pleased about the governance engagement, the involvement, and we continue to give updates across the campus. The provost and Vice Chancellor Van Harpen have given have been giving town hall and updates to every school and college, and we had an administrative update about 2 weeks ago. So all our administrative units are up to speed. Now we have both Professors Mark Harris and Kathy Dolan, who are leading the latest work on this, and that report will come to us next week to Johannes and myself, and we will then be communicating and talking about what steps we move forward as we implement all the ideas across these areas. Huge difference for our campus, and I need to tell you, all the changes that we've been undergoing are relatively incremental compared to some of the bold actions and things that we need to look forward to make sustainability our key piece here. As I turn a corner, start to put these pieces all together, I want to talk a little bit about UWM mission, role, and the activities in which you're so engaged. This campus is unique. There's no other campus like UW-Milwaukee in the state of Wisconsin, not just where we reside in terms of the largest metro area serving a remarkable population, putting talent together, solving problems through research, and really engaging to make a difference in education, healthcare, the environment, and all these different areas. We change lives. That's our business. We are transformational at the individual and organizational level. We do that through research and access, problem solving, the types of engagements. That's absolutely core. We couldn't do it without you, with each of you, the contributions. And I don't just mean what happens in the classroom. I don't mean just what happens in the research lab or what happens in terms of the infrastructure, the financials, the payroll, the benefits, the things that we're doing on the testing front. It really is every single person. And it's in that context that we engage and that we interact with individuals, and every single one of those becomes a touch point. And that becomes, if you will, the tests. That becomes the types of things that I hear about all the time from alumni. I hear about it increasingly from parents. You know, it's amazing. And just a side comment, I think we're going to see even more parental involvement as parents have become de facto instructors. We'll continue to see, I think, even more of that. So stay tuned, but that's a side issue. So it's in that context, given your role, and as much as I appreciate and value what you're doing, I also want to say we have some opportunities that I'm going to consider and pitch as requests for you. I'm not going to ask you to do something that I'm not also doing. I do these things and I am out there. I view my role as chief fundraiser, whether it's on the philanthropic front or whether it's fighting for additional compensation for employees in the state budget, the work that we're trying to get in terms of increased percentages of UW system allocations. And I have to say with pride, we've been successful on every one of those. But I do more, and I think you do more too. And here's the types of things that I would ask for you. I'm going to ask you for 5 things. I've made a few implicit requests along the way, but I've got a few other things that I want to share with you. Number 1, health. It doesn't start anywhere else than that. We've got to take care of ourselves, but we've also got to take care of others. And so I'm going to stress and encourage you as much as possible to not only continue to do what you've been doing in terms of safe behaviors, the masking, washing hands, social distance, but when you can get a vaccine, I ask you to do it. and you might feel like you have reasons why you might not or might not be inclined to, I'm going to ask you to get over those. Why? Because you're helping yourself, you're helping your family and friends, you're helping our students, you're helping society get back to normalcy. For every single reason that I've heard about why I'm not going to do this or why I have concerns, I get it, I hear those, but usually there's pretty good answers. But I'm serious about this as the front line. We have 25,000 students, 4,000 employees, and we influence a lot of other individuals. This is foundational. I also want you to take care of each other, and vaccinations are a big part of that. I also want to tell you that if you're a leader, if you're a supervisor, and I know about 25% of our employees are, I need you to think about how we best engage our employees, how we listen, how we encourage, how we empower our individuals who have such great ideas. Again, leaders from so many different vantage points. The second request, our mission is unique. It's research, it's access. Nobody has that dual mission. We have this incredible opportunity and challenge in front of us, but we need to change to deliver it. You've heard me use this quote from The Leopard before. D. Tomaso said back in the 1950s, classic book, great movie, the more we want things to remain the same, the more we have to change. So that's a little variation on the quote, but think about that for a moment. What do we want to remain the same? What we're able to do, what we're able to give, how we can help others. If we want to continue to do that in a sustainable way, we're going to have to take some bold actions. I'd ask you to think about the data. Do you use dashboards, metrics? Do you track how well we're doing? Do you understand and have engagements with students and understand from the feedback that we're getting how we can improve? How can we collectively make the institution better? The incremental changes, as I've mentioned before, aren't the pathway to success in terms of the way that we're built, the way that we've operated historically. We've really got to think about those elements. The third comment is that it's not just be a brand ambassador. We all are. We all are brand ambassadors. So my point is, let's recognize and act on that, knowing that, first of all, every single interaction that we have has an influence. I was not too long ago in the Kalachi Center, and a lifeguard in the swimming pool came up to me, and she was so appreciative. Her name is Kate. She's in the PEC school, and I shared this with the faculty and the Dean Scott Emmons in the PEC school, and as a film student, she said, it was pretty rough in this transition, and she talked about what it was like in the spring semester, and then she enthusiastically told me how big a difference had happened over the summer and how the faculty had really mastered the small size instruction, the way that things worked out, and how her education was making a difference. She talked about her final projects, and she then talked about her family and friends that she was sharing the story with. And that's the power of what we don't even realize. What we do every day is through social media and other connections. So I encourage you, with your families, with your neighbors, with your use of social media, to help us get the word out. If we just think it's the marketing job, or it's the communications job, or it's that person's job, not recognizing every single interaction, what a difference it makes. That's the power and our secret weapon, if you will, for the future. So I encourage you to use those points of influence. Help me with elected officials. Help me with all the different fronts that we're on. Leaders at all levels is the fourth area. You've been doing that, and I want to celebrate, I want to recognize that, but every single one of you is a leader. Not just if you're in governance and involvement there, not just if you're in terms of a key faculty where you have authority and responsibilities. It is true for every single person on this campus that you have this opportunity. I couldn't be more proud of what I've seen in 2020 in terms of how people have stepped up and taken on roles far beyond what their original job description was. It's an incredible giving community that we have here. I want you to encourage that and recognize these are great growth opportunities. Many people have made those commitments and really helped us out. The final one is kind of a synthesis of these areas. I love doing this, and I encourage you to join me. Let's celebrate the positives of UWM, but let's also give credit. I like to say, catch people being good. Let me finish on that note. Take a look. These are people doing good. If you take a look, I'm going to play a little game here and ask you to see if you can find where these individuals are. What you'll see in one area is our think tank 2030 folks at work. You can see Chia, Wilkestar, a number of others that are hard at it. in terms of some of the activities that are happening there. We see things that are occurring to help keep our students, faculty and staff, and our visitors safe. You've got Eric Kozak putting up some plexiglass. You've got Charlie Boots, who is preparing some classroom seating. We also make important discoveries through research. You'll find here Sandra McClellan, Ryan Newton from our School of Freshwater Science, doing great things and happy to be doing it. How well we care for students is illustrated in a number of pictures here. University Housing Team, we've got Carrie Dawson, Arceta Knauts. We've got from our Norris Health Center, Becky Brock, Amir Siddiqui, Carrie Brickler, Karen Kruger, Alex Hall, a number of others that are participating behind them. On the advising front, we've got Sarah Terry and others. They're the virtual lifeline to so many students, as you can appreciate during this pandemic. How we step up for our community, you'll see both Mark Melans and our UWM Police Department, Lieutenant Brian Sutala. They're helping with building readiness surge testing as we make a difference in the community. And of course, on the communication front, you know the work behind the scenes. Chris Baylor, Kyle Bursaw, Chris Lago, Mary Baylor leads a lot of that work. And on WWM Radio, we've got Tom Lujak with our Professor Pate, former pre-med, post-bac student, Dr. Lawrence Moore, and many others. So we've got a number of people that are doing great things. I love to celebrate, love to show what we're doing. I want to recognize also, these are leaders at all levels. These are people who've stepped up. So thank you everyone for doing that. So let's stand back. Closing comments. This campus is vitally important, not just for the foundation and the defensive health issues and safety, as we've been so capable of doing. We're vitally important for the future of the state. If we're serious about economic recovery, if we're serious about social unrest being addressed, if we're serious about a democracy that's vitally important for us to preserve, higher education, especially public higher education, plays, in my opinion, and I believe there's much support for this, the most important role. We are so important for the future. It's beyond the talent pipeline, but it starts there. It's about innovation, entrepreneurship. It's about solving those major vexing issues, and it ultimately is the core of democracy. It's recognizing and making those rooms for improvement. So it's critical for us to continue, for us also to assert our place and recognize the need for more resources. And so that's what I'm fighting for every day. It's really amazing how we've risen to our challenges. Those priorities to embrace radical change, to make difficult but necessary decisions around financials, operations, and others, to work toward a smart and full safe campus operations in fall of 21. I ask you to come down that journey with all of us, to build a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive framework, and ultimately for us to continue to be that top choice, building a culture of care for our students, that radically welcoming, inclusive type of environment. So your engagement, your advocacy and support, absolutely needed and appreciated. In that spirit, I thank you. I'm so grateful, and I just have to say, you have been personally so encouraging of me as I've been going through a bit of a journey. I'm grateful for that. So thank you. I feel great, and may look a little different, some of those pictures they see out there, but I'm happy to keep the fight going and doing well. So thanks again, and I'm happy now to answer any questions that you might have, and I'm joined by a remarkable set of colleagues who will help me with any answers that we care to share. Thanks, everybody. Jay, do you want me to back out of this, or will you drive that? Okay, so here we go. We'll go to the chat here and see what we've got for a conversation. Okay, so thank you for your questions. Looks like we've got some questions. There's a few so far. Looks like we've got a question from Rachel, and it goes to Kathy Dolan and Mark Harris. How has the 2030 planning pivoted for the comparatively benign possibilities of a Biden administration for higher education?
The first thing I would say is that the 2030 planning was not necessarily in response to any particular presidential administration, in that a lot of the planning was motivated by both the enrollment challenges we face, the existing financial challenges we faced, and then the added challenges of COVID-19. And I think we can say that, excuse me, the Biden administration will certainly is expected to be more friendly to higher education than was the previous administration. But we know that the president saying words does not necessarily lead to action yet. We don't know exactly what President Biden's plans for higher education will be beyond the executive order that he signed, putting a pause on student loan repayment schedules. We know that he wants to have a robust COVID-19 financial package with more money in the CARES Act and for higher education. But until that bill is passed through Congress and signed, we won't know the size of it. So there really isn't planning that we are doing that has in mind any particular approach from an administration. We are trying to figure out the kinds of things that we need to do to be the campus we need and want to be moving forward into 2030 and beyond.
That's great, Kathy. I don't know if Mark wants to add anything. That was a pretty complete answer. Mark?
I think Kathy covered it well.
I agree. Okay, let's move on to our next question. This one is for Scott Gronert, Robin Van Harpen. We run day camp style programs for minors on campus in the summer, trio pre-college, college for kids, so forth. And we're wondering when UWM specific guidance on summer 21 programs for minors will be determined, especially whether on-campus options will be allowed, what measures will be needed to be taken, and what supports will be provided.
Well, for this summer, the academic plans are set and the summer coursework will be mainly online. When it comes to non-academic programs like the TRIO program, those decisions have yet to be made. We're going to wait to have a better idea what the public health conditions are in the summer. So in the coming weeks, guidance will be coming from the Emergency Operations Center and Safety and Assurance on those kinds of programs.
Thank you. Robin, anything to add to that?
Nope, Scott said it quite well. Those decisions will be coming shortly, and we will include that information on our websites as it's developed. If anyone has a particular concern about a time frame that is pending, whereby decisions have to be made very quickly before that guidance comes out, I would encourage you to let Chief Joe Lemire know. He is the lead of the Emergency Operations Center, and they're keeping an eye on those types of issues. So let us know if there's an urgent need. Otherwise, those decisions will be coming.
Scott and Robin, thank you. I'd like to broaden the conversation on TRIO summer pre-college programs for just a quick moment. Governor Thompson, in discussion with the chancellors a couple of weeks ago, we discussed exactly this issue. We're seeing a tremendous drop-off in juniors and seniors in high school with interest in and attention toward college, but that also coincides with this last fall, we had a 16% reduction of new freshmen to colleges nationally, and there's a lot of issues that are happening. A lot of juniors and seniors in college are reporting, boy, I don't know, I'm sorry, juniors and seniors in high school are reporting, I'm not sure I really want to continue with this academic experience if it's more of the same type of virtual or online remote type of situation. We also know that on our college campuses and in K-12 environments, we're seeing a real spike in mental health issues. There's a number of major factors that are going on that affect our future enrollment. What's most concerning though, and what we talked about, and I shared some of the data, shared some of the reports on this, is that we're seeing lower income and underrepresented student populations have a disparate impact. Let me share with you just one piece of data. There's a recent report that came out from Hetchinger. This report shows that if you have income, students with family incomes of $75,000 or less are 3 times less likely to go to college in the fall than those with incomes of $100,000 or more. This is dramatic. This is significant. So what we're focusing on, and Governor Thompson asked me to lead the effort across our system to look at summer bridge programs and other types of activities that can help with that transition. So I've gathered several provosts and chancellors, other individuals from UW system, and we've started our work. We've drafted an initial case statement and an outline for both of two things. One is to reinforce and get additional resources for existing summer types of programs. Number two, let's talk about developing something that can be put in front of the legislature. And we've already had preliminary discussions with key legislators to sponsor some activities that would help bring more resources for helping, especially with that transition. Who's going to benefit from this the most? Students, and particularly students, I believe, at UW-Milwaukee. So I'm pleased to be helping work on this type of initiative to really drive more resources for students that are going to benefit from this at UWM and other parts of the UW system. So that's just a quick update on some of the things that are happening around this question that you just asked about. Do we have any other questions? Let's keep going down here. Let's see. Next question. This one looks like for Mark and Tom, there's a lot of misinformation about COVID-19 variants and vaccinations. Who can we look to on campus to help us parse through the noise? What kind of commitment can we get from senior campus leadership to communicate more proactively with the general employee population on these issues as more units aim to work on campus more regularly? Well, first, number one, that we have put complete transparency around everything. If you haven't been following the coronavirus website, I encourage you to do that because we share everything as we know it. There's a tremendous amount of information on the website about testing, about what we know. I want to stress something that I said in my comments. Number one, vaccinations come, and the authorization and the distribution is federal and state. Campuses don't have that authority. We are fighting to get that type of opportunity to be a vaccination site. We're working incredibly hard in addition to the work that we're doing on testing. We will share with you absolutely everything that we know when we know it. I want to also reinforce, just like we've been doing in the testing, we want to be a resource not just for the campus, but for the community. And you heard my comments from what Governor Thompson would like to do. So we're really hitting this hard. And one of the things that's a tangible outcome is that through our work, we have now gotten campuses, UW system and other campuses, to be at the same level, 1B, in terms of what our ranking is in terms of authorities. So there's tremendous outcome already. And as we know more in terms of when we can get that information, we'll continue to share it. We'll also be communicating the importance of vaccine, and Tom Lujak has been working on a number of things as we get that information and the rollout of that. So Tom, to you, please.
Sure, Mark. The other advice that I give is to make sure that everyone who receives the regular email updates from University Relations opens them up. We find that the open rates for some of the emails consistently are running in that 40 to 50 to 60%. So the fact is, I think the information is out there. The key is to make sure that you're opening the door to those emails that come in. And again, we've really tried to be selective so that we're not snowing everybody with 3 emails a day. Although everything is posted on the website, and you can find it either in the bold headers or in the FAQs. We also make sure that the important information around vaccinations, around testing, will come to you in those regular emails. On Wednesday, including today, you'll also be receiving a email with the newsletter that includes really a summary of everything that has been put together over the last few days. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and either call me or email me directly, and we'll make sure that we get specific answers to your questions. But otherwise, take a look at what's hitting your inbox.
Tom, thank you. Much appreciated. So the next question is from Lane Hall, and it's to me. Mark, could you reflect on the importance of poetry within the context of national, local, and curricular contexts? Well, Lane, you're asking a former English major, not quite a major, I only got 38 of the 55 credits, about the importance of poetry. Let me reflect. First of all, I think most recently we heard at the inauguration Poet Laureate Amanda Gorman, who inspired, who really shared some important moments for many people. I think that was one of the highlights of the day. But more broadly, the importance, and I won't be able to do this justice without really, reflecting and thinking through it, Lane. But I think about symbolism, I think about the importance from a leadership perspective. I think about the poetry that I have on my nightstand. I think about how many wonderful poet laureates we've had out of UW-Milwaukee, shaping the landscape, shaping the thinking, and really reflective, deep perspectives that help us all for grounding and help us all for thinking about things substantively, what's important, and really putting matters in perspective in a pithy way. Much appreciated always. So those are a few quick comments and few thoughts, and happy to have further discussion with you about that. So that's I guess my first thoughts and reaction on the importance of poetry. So next question. To Robin and Mark. It's been just announced that educators in the state are part of the group that will receive vaccinations as of March 1st. Can you confirm that this includes post-secondary educators, and will staff also benefit from this expansion of vaccinations? Let me concur. That's what I was referring to earlier when I said that we have become part of 1B. This is a wonderful thing. Now, when I say we, that has to have some qualification. First is that we have those who are in contact with students. So as we understand it right now, and we haven't gotten the guidance, so this is operating with limited information. Individuals in the classroom, those who are responsible for being in the classroom, and that includes, of course, faculty, instructional staff, but also advisors who work with students on a regular basis, and that's the first line. Now, as far as others, in terms of other staff that are not in the classroom, not in advising, not in student-facing situations, I don't know. I honestly don't know, and I don't know how that breaks down within K-12 as well, if they have that demarcation. As we learn more, we'll share more information, but this is certainly very good news compared to us having been higher in the second grouping. Robin, would you add anything to that?
No, that was perfect. We are very interested in learning more, especially about that secondary group that's not as obvious as being in the classroom, and that is part of our objective to make that information available to the campus community so that everyone can get vaccinations as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Robin. Next question, I think, goes to you. It's from Sue Minsloff. Well, I think all of us appreciated having the days scheduled so that the entire campus would be closed. If furloughs are needed in 21-22, could you please consider not having the day before a semester begins as one of them? This really caused a hardship for some administrative offices and really didn't help us come across as radically welcoming.
Thank you. I really appreciate that feedback. It is not easy to find days that will work for a campus-wide furlough. Certainly, I will take that into account if we move forward with furloughs. Right now, that decision has not yet been made.
Thanks, Robin. I don't see any other questions in the queue right now. I'm sure one will come or so, but I want to stress that all the questions that have been received prior to this town hall have been answered directly, and we've also created FAQs in addition to those that were already out there. So I want you to know how responsive and how transparent we are in all our communication, and there's a lot of individuals who are behind the scenes helping work on that. Next question. Should Wisconsin overturn the state mask mandate, what will the UWM campus do? So that's a great question. I understand in the Senate there has been support for that, and then it goes to the Assembly now, in which case they would overturn what Governor Evers has imposed. To the extent that UW system has the authority, and I will tell you UWM, I will do everything I can to keep the mask mandate in place. I think it's foundational. I think that what we've seen in terms of a lot of the cases coming down and the deaths, this is frontline stuff. So the importance of vaccinations, I've stressed, but foundational even beyond that and before that. Masks, hand washing, social distancing. Let's face it, folks, we've got to take this one on seriously and be there. I don't care what the perspective where you're coming from. So that's my stance on it at this point. I don't know if any of my colleagues, Robin, Johannes, Joan, other folks have different perspectives in terms of what they're hearing or seeing from the state. Johannes?
Mark, I will just, if it's live, I would just say I fully agree with you. I already said last year in March, wear masks. It's for me a no-brainer. We have to do that. It's as simple as that.
Thank you. Robin?
I would just say that our own mandate was separate from any state action. So as long as we're not prevented from imposing that requirement, we will make our own independent decision based on the best evidence we have in front of us.
Great, thank you. Next question from Rachel. In the Moonshot for Equity, what's the vision of the role of programs and departments that have historically responded to the demands of students of color, women, and LGBTQ+ people, African American diaspora studies, Chicanx, Latinx studies, American Indian studies, gender and women's studies, LGBTQ+ studies, comparative ethnic studies? Great question, Rachel. Thank you. I go back to what I said, and then I would like to reinforce that. What I talked about is this need for comprehensive systematic integration of a lot of different areas, and I referred to schools and colleges. You are taking the question even more down into the particulars, and at the operational level, this is exactly what I was referring to. We need to have an embrace, we need to have recognition of the great work that's happening, but also reinforce it, raise it up, and talk about here's opportunities of individuals, like the program around comparative cultures and studies that you're leading, to really look at the types of activities, actions, ways that we can bring voice and action further to the matters that are particular to our students. They're very specific. They're very important issues around housing, around food insecurity, around things that are both non-academic, things that precede but surround importantly students, as well as what we're doing on our campus. Rachel, the simple answer is we need to meet the students where they are. The centers, the areas of focus that you're raising are doing that, and we need to actually bolster that. And that's where I look at the leadership, where we have Phyllis King, Dave Clark, Kay Eilers, the work of our multicultural centers, our identity centers, and the departments. That's the vision, and let's make that happen together. We're only going to do this if we can reinforce and bolster each other's work. And so look forward to further conversation, further integration of your work, and of course, listening and learning much more about what you do and how it can be part of this. So I want to reinforce that. Looks like we've got a few minutes left and no additional questions at this point. Looks like another one is coming, so we'll wait for that as it's coming in. Okay, this one, question for me. Do I have any thoughts about the continuation of some flexibility about where some people work after we come back to campus in general? Recognizing that it's been difficult for so many of us, I think that some continuing flexibility might be desirable. I agree with that. And my first thought is I think we're going to go through evaluation of this both in the curricular academic sense, but also when we think about administrative support and other types of activities that happen across our campus. We have gone from a situation where a year ago, one of our major support units was evaluating whether employees could work off campus for 3 or 4 days a year to now where they haven't been on campus for 3 or 4 days of almost the last year. So clearly there are advantages, there's opportunities, but there's huge implications as well in terms of space requirements and how we best use our campus space. We really do have some opportunities for both employee flexibility for the work that's done, as well as the way we operate and live at UWM. Let me offer one final comment, and then I think Robin, who has got all the facilities with Johannes, who also has responsibilities for our space management, offered their thoughts on this. I do want to underscore a key premise, and that's how important it is for us to come back to really be able to have that face-to-face, in-person type of experience. So I want that to be the driver. So we can't, well, just because it works best for me to stay remote. There are certain things that can only be done in person and certain jobs that must be done in person. That's just the way physical infrastructure on campuses operate. So we'll need to be paying attention first and foremost to that. Robin and Johannes, I don't know if you'd add anything further to this issue around flexibility for the future.
I would totally agree with that, Mark. Obviously, because we're not through to the end of the situation, we haven't landed on what will be best for our working environments. in the long term, but we've learned so much through this experience, and the tools that we now have in place through Teams have allowed us to be productive at home like never before. So we just posted an FAQ on this within the last week or two, encouraging units and supervisors to think about being flexible in the future while meeting the needs of our clients and stakeholders, and at the same time, the preferences of our employees. And we'll continue to monitor that as we move through this in terms of how we can best serve the campus.
Thanks, Robin. Johannes?
Mark, I agree on flexibility. I actually think in a bigger scheme of things with COVID, pro-COVID, work and the way we work will change, and we need to adapt to that as well. So where it's practical and flexible, I think we need to have that openness.
Great, thank you. There's two final questions, and I'll ask them, and then we'll move on, because I've got, unfortunately, a call with Governor Thompson at 11 o'clock that I've got to jump on. The next question, second to the last one, is from Gabriella, and it's to Joan and Mark. You mentioned progress that's been made regarding support for the multicultural centers on campus. Can you elaborate, especially considering how many BIPOC students UWM welcomes? I think it's important to speak more on the support of the multicultural centers currently have and what more to look forward to. I agree, Gabby. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Joan, would you like to start, and then I'll add?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Gabby, great question. And as you know, this therein focuses the center of the work that we do in these, I love to call them student advocacy centers. And it doesn't just spread to the students, it spreads to their family, it spreads to community. And so I would say that, as you know, the multicultural centers in particular, they have that reach. And through Dr. Vang, through CHIA, we have asked the centers to dig down, to dig deeper, and to continue to spread the UWM message, but to do it in a sense that, in a way that it also provides that cultural context where the student and their family feel good about that placement at UWM. I think that at the end of the day, that has to be broadened, it has to be deepened, and it has to be linked together with our identity centers in a way that it is something that the community understands. We don't have to tell them or make promises about UWM. They know we can do it. So to your point, and to the context of the question, the multicultural centers continue to be supported along with our identity centers, and in any way, shape, or form that we can deepen that support, just know that that's going to happen.
Great, Joan. I think you've covered it all, and I just want to reinforce, as we have brought the multicultural centers to common leadership within our global inclusion engagement areas, the uniformity of leadership and the direction that you and Dr. Vang have provided, I think, has been absolutely essential, and I look forward to reinforcing that. And Gabby, to the comments and the same elements that I addressed earlier in regard to Rachel's question, I think they're equally applicable to everything that's happening in the multicultural centers, to showcase, to embrace, to meet the students where they are, recognizing that our students have many identities, just like most of us, with many different areas, and it's critical for us to reinforce the work that's done in the academic areas with the types of socio-emotional, socio-cultural advising, substantive help. So thank you for that question. The last question is around endowments, and the question is, to me, UWM has over $250 million in endowments. Can that be used to offer scholarships to increase enrollment, especially in the underrepresented groups of high school students? Let me first of all clarify that as of December, we had $194 million in endowments. 120 million of that was completely committed, and it was all dedicated to certain things, and the other 70 was more in flexible spending types of accounts. Fortunately, because of increased commitments and the great way the market has been operating, as of last week, those numbers have increased to about 205 million. So just first of all, to clarify, our endowment for our campus has $205 million roughly today. So the biggest point about endowments is they're almost all dedicated. In other words, there's no discretionary dollars there. It's not like, oh, we generate, this many $1 million in interest and returns, and we can allocate that with discretion from the campus. I'm happy to say that in terms of scholarships, that is the #1 target, the #1 use of the proceeds of our endowment. So the answer is, we don't have 250, we have 205. Most of those dollars that come from the endowment already go to scholarships, and a significant portion of those go to underrepresented high school students who are going on to college. So the answer is, let's clarify what we really have, but the answer is yes, we're doing that already, but we need to do more. This campus, we could double and triple the amount of scholarship dollars and still have significant need. We have to bolster that, and that's why I'm so excited about our next campaign. And I have to tell you, to put this in perspective, our endowment, it wasn't that long ago that we operated with a $40, $50, $60 million endowment. Today we're over 200, but Think Tank 2030 has said we need a $500 million endowment. Let's get to that, because that's what's going to enable us to have between $15 and $25 million a year that we could have for greater number of scholarships and benefits. So we're on that path, we're all over it, and that's what I view as our next campaign as we go through 2021, wrap up everything from our last campaign, lay in the foundation. Our next campaign, we're seeding that right now. I'm actually talking to community leaders about their role on the campaign cabinet, and that's the big ambition for the next future, is building toward that $500 million endowment by 2030. So thumbs up on that, love the direction, and I need your help. We need everybody's help. So that's it. We're at 11:02. I'm late for my call. I apologize to all of you for going a little bit over, but we're good. And like I say, we'll have another town hall with even more specifics as we move into probably early March, and we'll get dates out on that soon. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for all the people behind the scenes helping put this together, especially Jay Pine, Chris Baylor, a number of others on the UWM and campus technology side. Thanks, everybody.